the absolutely unthinkable just happened on Pokémon Day. There was a general consensus amongst Pokémon fans that there could be a new Legends game that was announced, but I don't think anyone expected not only for it to be Pokémon Legends in Kalos, but it is Pokémon Legends Z. There are a lot of hardcore Kalos fans out there, but I think the general consensus amongst the community is that Gen 6 is one of the weaker generations of Pokémon. But that's exactly why this game should exist, and why I'm personally super excited for it. With the lore of Kalos, there's a lot of ways that this game could go, and that's what I want to look into today. If you like Pokemon content, I would really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. This is something that's actually pretty new for my channel, and showing support would show me that you guys want to see more content like this in the future. But anyways, enough shilling out of the way. Let's get into how Pokemon Legends ZA is going to save Gen 6 and Kalos as a whole. First, I want to get an idea of what time period we're dealing with, as Kalos has certain events that happen in its past that would be very cool to see in the game. When you watch the trailer to try to gauge a time period, everything seems kind of unclear. The trailer goes back and forth of these plans for this Kalos project to either be on paper or this weird technology hologram looking type thing. I've seen a lot of people, including myself at first, say that this hologram is supposed to be representative of blueprints. But honestly, after watching this trailer so many times over and over again, I'm not really convinced that it's blueprints anymore. It really feels like the in-between of the paper and this technology side is very intentional. And I think there's a few ways we can interpret this. One, this could just take place before Lumiose was created, and it's showing you the advancement over years and years of time. The second option being the opposite of that. But the third and possible most intriguing option is that the game will take place in the past and the future, allowing you to travel across time. This third theory is going to be the one we're exploring today, because again, in the trailer it goes back and forth. But there is a little bit more evidence about it going from past to the future. Pokemon has had a huge focus on time travel lately, especially with the paradoxes in Scarlet and Violet, as well as the entire game of Pokemon Legends Arceus. But, obviously, that doesn't have anything to do with Kalos, right? Well, I think there's actually something that we can inspect from the name itself. A lot of people are very confused by the name. Why isn't it called just Pokemon Z? It's just about Zygarde, right? Even Pokemon ZA would be fine. But something very important to look at in the logo is that dash. I think the reason the game is named this is because Z is supposed to be representative of the future, while A is supposed to be representative of the past. Surely I don't need to explain to you how A is the first letter of the alphabet, Z is the last one, blah blah blah. But if we look at the logo, it has the hexagonal pattern on the Z that looks a little futuristic like, and on the A we have the plants that are growing on it, representing how the world was before the technology took over. Now, yes, it is obvious that the Z is supposed to represent Zygarde, especially with the hexagons that Zygarde has on his body. What I'm trying to point out is how out of place this A feels in the name of the game. A lot of people are talking about how the A is supposed to be representative of the ultimate weapon from Pokemon X and Y, but that still doesn't explain why it's just the letter A. Speaking of Zygarde, I want to talk about him for a little bit. Zygarde is a very interesting Pokemon that has a really weird history. There's a ton of evidence pointing to the fact that there was supposed to be a Pokemon Z sequels to X and Y, but as we know based on the releases, we never received it. So a lot of Zygarde's content was sprinkled in across Gen 7 for some reason? How this Pokemon was introduced to us aside, this Pokemon in general just has really weird everything else too. He can be a cell, he can be a dog, he can be a serpent thing, and he can be this giant mech-looking craziness. We're gonna take it back to when Zygarde was simple, and he was just a little cool serpent guy. Well, maybe I shouldn't say little, that dude's huge. If we take a look at Zygarde's Pokedex entries, I really believe that this can give us an idea of what to expect from Pokemon Legends ZA. All of Zygarde's Pokedex entries mention something about protecting the ecosystem and suppressing those who harm it. He acts as a neutral party against Yveltal and Xerneas, the Pokemon of Destruction and the Pokemon of Life. If either of these two ever do what they do too much, Zygarde will always be there to stop them, as it's rumored that the secret power he can draw out could overpower Xerneas and Yveltal. It's very clear that Zygarde has a lot of power that he can use, but just because I mentioned that he could overpower Yveltal and Xerneas, does that mean that's who he's going to use it against? In Pokemon ZA, we keep seeing this urban redevelopment plan of Lumiose City. The unclear part of the trailer is whether this is current day Lumiose that's getting this redevelopment, or if it is redevelopment from a Lumiose from the past. Regardless of which one it is, urban redevelopment usually leads to an idea of urban sprawl, which is when, in a pursuit of building a new, better town, you expand. This may lead the city to encroach on some areas that it probably shouldn't. And as we know, more city will usually mean that there's more pollution, as more people are consuming and doing things around the city. I think this will be Zygarde's role in the story. Zygarde is going to consider the Lumiose plan as a threat to the ecosystem, and it's likely going to be Zygarde versus the people who are building it. If we take this idea of past and future, maybe we can see the future where Zygarde destroys Lumiose City, and we go back to the past to learn if we can even defeat Zygarde in the first place. Personally, I'm actually not a huge fan of time travel stories. It seems good time travel stories are kind of hard to come by. However, when considering what makes Kalos special, a lot of it has to do with the events that happened in the past, such as the Great Pokemon War and the creation of the ultimate weapon. So I will admit I'm not super confident on the time travel thing as I am my Zygarde theory, but I think that would be a cool way so we get to experience that part of Kalos. For the rest of this video, I want to talk about some of the Pokemon related stuff, such as what I think the starters will be and some Pokemon that I think will get Mega Evolutions. First, I think the starter trio will be Chikorita, Piplup, and Scorbunny. Scorbunny is honestly kind of a safe pick for any of the Europe-based regions just because of soccer or football. And I think what would be cool is if the regional evolution of Scorbunny was fire and electric type. I chose Piplup because 1, the Pokemon Company just loves this Pokemon, man. And since they chose starters that were not based in Sinnoh for Legends Arceus, I think Piplup would be a very good choice for this slot. For Piplup's regional evolution, I honestly don't really know what it could be. If you have any ideas, leave them in the comments because I'm really curious about this one. But anyways, I chose Chikorita because I think it just rounds out this group of starters really well by having a quadruped grass type. And for its regional evolution, I was thinking Grass Fairy. I mean, come on, one of the starters has to be Fairy, it's Kalos. Just ignore the fact that they didn't do that for the original Kalos starter trio. I feel pretty confident about this list of starters for Legends ZA, except for the fact that they will probably all have Mega Evolutions. And if we're getting Mega Evolutions, that might mean there might be a Charizard Z. But to be fair, I think that'll happen no matter what, if he is one of the starters or not, so. Since we're on the topic, why don't we talk about Mega Evolutions? Pokemon did a pretty good job of representing every generation with at least one Mega Evolution. Pokemon almost did a pretty good job representing every generation with at least one Mega Evolution. Of course, generations 7, 8, and 9 were not out at the time, so I think this would be a good opportunity to give some Pokemon from those generations a Mega Evolution. The Pokemon I could see them giving a Mega Evolution to would be Lycanroc. I imagine this being a combination of all 3 of the forms, but primarily looking like the Midnight form. For Gen 8, I have 2 in mind that I could see getting Mega Evolutions. I'll start with the one I'm not too confident on, and that's going to be Grimmsnarl. The reason I'm not too confident is because Grimmsnarl has a Gigantamax form, but I would love to see a Mega Evolved version of him. The Pokemon that I think is more likely is Dragapult. It would be really cool to see a Dragapult that's like swarmed with Dreepies. Just please, do not make a Ghost Dragon type Pokemon have parental bond. And for Gen 9, I think a really good candidate for the Mega Evolution slot would be Spidops, baby. Give me Mega Spidops. It's the best option. There's not a single Pokemon in Paldea that would do better than... For Paldea, I actually have 3 answers. 2 of them are Armarouge and Ceruledge. Since these Pokemon are so tied together, you can't really give one of them one without the other. My other idea would be Tinkaton. Tinkaton is just a huge fan favorite, and I'd like to see the huge fan favorite with an even bigger hammer. For this last set of Megas, I want to give Gen 5 a more respectable Mega Evolution. Also, how did Kalos create Mega Evolution but not have any from its own generation? I mean, seriously, I just don't get why they wouldn't have it. Oh yeah, I forgot about you. Clearly these gens need better representation, so let's start with Gen 5. I would really like to see a Mega Scolipede and Mega Gothitelle. I'd just really be interested to see the direction that they would take with Scolipede, because all the Mega Bug types are so cool. And Gothitelle might be nice because of an additional type that Gothitelle could get. I'd really like to see them get experimental with these Mega typings. As for the Kalos Mega Evolution, I would really like to see Florges or Trevenant. Florges is just the fairy type Pokemon to me. Like when I imagine fairy type, I think of Florges. Trevenant is just one of the cooler Pokemon from Kalos, so that's why I chose him. And I think a lot of people like him a lot more because of Unite. Or, honestly, maybe you like him less because he is very annoying to fight against. Now, I think there are a lot of obvious Megas that I left out that would happen. I was just trying to strike a nice balance between some fan favorites and some weirder Pokemon. X and Y had a lot going for it as a Pokemon game. Mega Evolution is received as one of the best Pokemon mechanics of all time, and it brought a lot of great things to us, like the 3D era and character customization. X and Y also had some of the strongest art direction in the entirety of Pokemon. When it comes to story and Pokédex though, it was quite lacking in that area. But that's why it's amazing that it's getting a Legends game. I was never the biggest Gen 4 fan. Not quite a hater, but I really started to appreciate the Gen 4 Pokemon when I played Legends Arceus. And that beautiful effect is something only a unique twist on something like a Pokemon generation can have. This is why I think that Pokemon Legends ZA could save Kalos. But that's it from me today. Again, if you liked the video, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed to the channel. And I hope you're looking forward to this game as much as I am. I know a lot of people were expecting some sort of Gen 2 or Gen 5 announcement, so hopefully you weren't too disappointed either. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!